As the sun begins to set over Colorado Springs, Danielle Donlin is enjoying a quiet evening with her grandson Terry.
She was cooking dinner that evening, and she had one thing to do, and that was bring Shadow in, her dog.
Shadow! Shadow!
So she doesn't see him and calls him again.
Shadow! There he is.
And here comes Shadow. With something large in his mouth.
What's he got?
I don't know, Terry.
She wasn't quite sure what it was when he was first coming up.
I thought it might have been a bone, a piece of an animal. It was bloody, had muscle tissue on it. So I walked over there and the dog moved away.
Oh my God. Don't touch it!
Oh my God, he's got a human skull in his mouth.
Come on, boy. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go.
Across town, it's Lt.Joe Kenda's turn to do the family grocery shopping.
We both worked. And the deal was whoever was available to grocery shop would do so when the cupboard was bare. I'm the world's fastest shopper. I bid with my list, I throw it in the cart, and I move on.
It seems the rest of Kenda's list will have to wait.
And I walked out the door. Went back to work.
Kenda has been summoned to a neighborhood at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, southwest of town.
How you doing?
Hey, good.
So we got?
So the woman who lives here, her dog comes home with a human skull.
In this case, I can't imagine something any more distressing than what this dog has discovered.
So we're setting up lights to do a search for the rest of the body?
It's not uncommon for people's pet dogs to find items they think interesting and they bring them home with them.
The medical examiner's over here checking out the skull. Do you want to go see it?
Let's take a look. What do you think we got, Doc? I'll take a look.
The eyes are no longer present. There are patches of brown hair on the skull.
For starters, it's obvious that another animal got a hold of this before the dog did. See the teeth marks here?
In Colorado, we have a lot of large scavenger type animals, including, bear, mountain lion. So anytime you have remains left outside, the animals are going to find it.
Time of death is fairly recent. I would say in the last couple of weeks or so. Female, young adult to mature.
Even with a few features on the skull, you can generally talk about whether it's male or female. You can tell age of the remains, meaning how old was the person when they died, by looking at the eruption of the teeth.
No obvious bullet wounds or trauma, but since we don't have the rest of the body, who knows? Right. Good luck with this one, Joe. Yeah, thanks.
We have no body, and we certainly don't know who it is. So we have 1,000 questions and one answer. The answer is it's human and it's dead.
We need to call back to the station and have them start pulling missing persons reports. Any Caucasian female reported in the past 2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
When remains are discovered, your first instinct is that this is a missing person. Not everyone that's missing is reported as missing, but this is a place for us to begin.
As his team at the station pulls recent missing persons records, Kenda tries to locate the rest of the remains.
When you're looking at a case like this, you want to talk to the owner of the dog, Shadow.
Hey, bud. How you doing, man? I'm Lieutenant Kenda. Do you have any idea where the dog might have got the skull?
No, he roams on his own. He never crosses a highway, I can tell you that, though.
The dog was on the west side of the road and somehow discovered this head and brought it to this house, and I have no idea where, how, or anything else.
All right, let's map this out.
You search in proximity to where the dog was last known to be, which is at the house with the head. You have no way to determine how far that dog would go, or in what direction.
We'll start searching the surrounding areas, and we'll radiate out into the wilderness.
You break it into squares, and you assign people to squares. You try to make it organized, but in a rural area like this and mountainous terrain, that's very, very difficult to do.
This is gonna be hard enough as it is. Let's not make it any harder than it has to be by trying to do this in the dark. Let's all be right back here first thing in the morning.
You don't want to encounter a black bear at night when you're out there searching around in the woods. It's safer to wait till first light so that you have plenty of light to go out there and do a proper search.
So daylight comes, and they come back and they start to search. And they use a cadaver dog who can, by scent, help find bones or a buried person.
Anything associated with a dead body, these dogs absolutely will find it. They'll go to it like a bee to honey.
Oh boy. They're trained to notify their handler when they have made a hit. Some dogs bark, some howl, some just sit.
I'm hopeful that these dogs are going to immediately find this. If they cannot, you have to consider how big of an area do we need to look in. El Paso County is the size of Rhode Island.
An hour into the search, the canine officer gets ahead.
Lieutenant!
Come on, let's go.
There is an odor that is indescribable.
What do we got?
You got something.
Well, my. So we have a house dog that's recovered a human skull. A female human skull. Now we're on a search for the rest of this woman's remains. Using cadaver dogs for the search, we've had success.
Oh boy.
So we all walk up to where the dog and handler are.
So what do we got?
You got something. I don't think it's a full body, though.
We find a few human bones, a femur, a tibia, a shoulder blade. Some have flesh still attached. They have gnaw marks on the bones from animal teeth.
And those bite marks look like the look of a bear.
People think bears are berry pickers. They are. But they won't hesitate to eat flesh. They have no difficulty tearing bodies limb from limb, removing heads from a fresh kill.
Make sure you collect all those and let me know what you find out. Yes.
The discovery of the bones prompts Kenda and his men to entertain another, more unusual possibility.
Was she a hiker that was just out for a hike one day? And encountered a bear, and the bear attacked her.
The likely suspect in this is a bear.
While the search for the rest of the body continues, Kenda focuses on identifying the victim.
Any luck with those missing persons reports?
They said that they do have a couple missing female reports that could possibly match.
Now here's what I need you to do. Contact their families, have them bring over the demo records ASAP. I'll swing by the station, take them to the coroner's office myself.
Well, we've got the skull with the teeth. One of the best ways to do an identification on a unknown person is through dental records.
No, not this one. The second and third molars are totally different.
An X-ray of a known person's dental records overlay like a map. You put one over the other, and if something's out of place, it's not them.
No, not this one either. The jawline structure is completely different.
People's dentistry changes over time, but much of what your teeth look like and the fillings that you've had in the past are going to still be there. When you compare those teeth, what you have on the skull is as good as a fingerprint. It looks identical.
Then when he gets a third person up there, he begins to look at those, and then he really gets interested.
We got Doc.
Hold on.
And he starts seeing which teeth they are and the depth and breadth of the work that was performed on each tooth. And he makes an identification.
That's her, Lieutenant. The molars match up perfectly. Well, that's her.
You're positive?
Absolutely.
All right, let's see what we got. Diane Pelkey.
So now we know that this mysterious head is that of none other than Diane Pelkey, age 36. She was reported as a missing person by her husband, Michael Pelkey, 1 week before the head was discovered by the doc. So she'd only been dead for 7 or 8 days.
Inside Diane Pelkey's file, Kenda finds a newspaper ad placed by her husband.
Michael Pelkey took out a full-page ad in the paper with pictures of his wife pleading for help in locating her, announcing he loves her desperately and he's very worried someone has taken her and done her harm.
Michael Pelkey was a 16-year veteran of the United States Army, still active duty, and lived off Fort Carson with his wife.
Kenda must now inform Michael Pelkey of his wife's death.
Miss Pelkey? Lieutenant Kenda. Pepsi.
What I tell him is we have found human remains, leave it vague as that, and say that positive identification has been made of her through dental records.
No, this can't be real.
He was overcome when they let him know that it was Diane. They had been together for 15 years, and they had a 5-year-old son, and then they also learned she was 4 months pregnant.
Can you tell me the last time you saw your wife?
The night that she went missing, we went out to dinner.
He said, we started to bicker over stupid married stuff. We've been at each other a little bit for the past few months.
It's not a big deal.
You know,
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I've had it with the arguing and the fighting all the time.
He said she walked away from him and walked off into the night. She was really angry. And he thought, well, she'll get over it, then she'll come home.
Based on Michael Pelkey's statement, the restaurant where he last saw his wife is located in downtown Colorado Springs, which means she likely would have had to travel more than 10 miles on foot in order to come face to face with a wild bear.
This is not a situation where Mrs. Pelkey is walking in the woods and attacked by a bear. She is killed by something far worse than a bear. She's killed by a human. Now the question is, which human?
Was she hitchhiking, trying to get a ride back home?
Did you get a ride?
And somebody picked her up and ended up killing her?
After speaking with Michael Pelkey, Kenda heads back to the station, replaying their conversation in his head along the way.
You're going to look for her for a few minutes? He says he has to go home and take care of his 5-year-old son. It could be true. I just don't like it.
More red flags are raised when Kenda takes a closer look at the original missing persons report filed by Michael Pelkey.
I'm reading through it, and on the bottom of the page,
JDLR.
the officer puts in quotes JDLR, and that really struck me. Policemen have a code for lots of different things, but one of the things they have a code for is JDLR, which means just doesn't look right.
Yeah, You don't write that on a missing person's report for no reason. You write that down there so that somebody's looking at that later says, oh, he was suspicious about this.
Something about Pelkey bothered this cop.
Yes, is Officer Donaldson working today?
Now, what exactly do you mean, officer, by JDLR? We're investigating the death of Diane Pelkey. Her husband, Sergeant Michael Pelkey, has reported his wife missing. And now we're looking at the report, and what do I find? The police code JDLR. JDLR is officer shorthand for just doesn't look right. That's not good.
After reading the report, Kenda tracks down the officer who originally wrote it.
Hey, Donaldson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, do you remember taking a missing person report from the Army guy that came in here about a week and a half ago?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I saw your note.
He said he was suspicious because very little information was forthcoming from Micah when he made this report.
Nothing about a child, nothing about her being pregnant, nothing about ever arguing with her. All of a sudden, she's just gone. She's just not anywhere to be found.
Crazy thing was, after giving the basics, he was straight out the door. Didn't even wait.
It's been my experience when people really believe something awful has happened to a loved one, they're standing on my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning demanding to know why I slept last night and I wasn't out looking for their loved one.
That's why I put the note on the bottom of the report. In case something came up, somebody would know.
I said, well, something's come up. Dead Diane Pelkey has come up.
Kenda runs Michael's name in the police database.
We discover all these damning things. There's a history of domestic violence. There's been restraining orders in the past. They have filed for divorce. He never told us any of those things in our contact with him at Fort Carson.
Kenda increasingly believes Michael Pelkey may have murdered his wife, but he's not sure he has the authority to pursue the case any further.
In my opinion, this is not a city case.
Because of the fact that Diane's remains were found in El Paso County, the sheriff's office was involved in this investigation.
The case may be outside Kenda's jurisdiction, but that doesn't stop him from pressing the sheriff's office to put the squeeze on Michael Pelkey.
Yeah, I've got a guy that I really like for it. I think the husband definitely has something to do with it.
They listened to us very carefully, and they said, yeah, we'll take it. So they do. And they bring Pelkey into the sheriff's department, and we're out.
At the sheriff's office, deputies hammer away at Michael Pelkey.
They present his history with her. They present all the reasons why they suspect he's responsible for her death.
There's a lot here that just does not make sense to me. Maybe you can help me out.
Sergeant Pelkey is overwhelmed by guilt, overwhelmed by the presentation of one fact after another that points directly at him and at no one else. And he's going to break. And that's precisely what he did.
I didn't mean to do it. You have to believe me.
Just tell me what happened.
We were in the car together, driving to Manitou Lake where I wanted to do some fishing. And on the way there, we started arguing. Why don't you just admit you slept with that guy?
You've got a lot of nerve considering what you've been up to.
He felt that she had been unfaithful to him. She felt that he had been unfaithful to her, and it just escalated.
I moved on from that.
So you're trying to say it never happened?
What is your problem, Diane?
My problem is you. I have had it with you. Stop right here. I'm getting off. I'm tired. I don't want to listen to you anymore.
At some point, Diane just wanted to get some space between them, and that doesn't set well.
Stop the car!
What is your problem? Hey! Get out here, Diane!
Michael tells investigator he snapped.
He admits to the sheriff's detectives he strangles her in the car.
You have to understand. It was an accident.
Using your hands to kill someone is a long and agonizing process. It takes as long as 2 minutes to die. There is no accident.
This was the mother of his child, the mother of his soon-to-be second child, and you're watching them die. This is brutal. How one human being can do that to another human being they profess to have loved.
And now she's dead, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday.
Michael tells detectives that after strangling Diane, he panicked and decided the best move would be to drive to a remote location in the Rocky Mountain foothills and dispose of her body.
He decides, I'm going to seatbelt her in so no one will be suspicious that she's dead, that she's merely a passenger in my car. It just is unimaginable.
He drives to a ravine near the highway.
He left her in an area where he couldn't imagine anyone would ever find her, a very wooded area.
His plan is he's going to report her missing to the police. Then he's going to take out an ad in the paper. Then he's going to do all these things to defray suspicion from him.
I can well imagine that he thought maybe he was going to get away with murder.
Well, you're wrong there, Michael. His plan unravels around him, and they arrest him for murder.
Shortly after that, our district attorney agreed to allow Fort Carson to court-martial him, and Michael Pelkey was convicted of second-degree murder and is currently serving a life sentence at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the military penitentiary there.
You are held to a higher standard by the United States military. You will not behave in this way, and if you do, you will be one sorry son of a bitch. Sergeant Pelkey found that out the hard way.
So now we have a little boy who has a father in Leavenworth who will never get out again, and a mother who will never return home, and a sibling that he will never have. And what's left is a lot of sadness. It could have all been avoided.
What happens to him? All because of the father believing that death was the answer to a problem in life.
Coming up, a quiet young man
Oh, God.
is gunned down in his own bedroom.
I am here to kill, and this lock is in my way. So now it becomes boom, diddy, boom, diddy, boom. Let's shoot this door apart.
Hey Judy, are you excited about watching the Olympics? I am excited. I like the swimming.
It's a normal overnight shift at the 911 call center where it's not necessarily busy.
Well, I've got one coming in. 911, what is your emergency? Hello, this is 911. What is your emergency?
Can you please send someone here quickly? A burglar just broke into my apartment.
She knows that somebody's voice is heightened and that somebody's in distress.
Okay, I have your location. It's East Bijou, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Oh, God!
And then she hears this noise, like a bang, and the line goes dead.
Hello, sir. Are you there? Is anyone there?
It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I had responded to a complaint of a burglary in progress with shots being fired.
Let's go to case. AJ, anybody hurt?
Yeah, we got one dead, a male Vic in the back bedroom, Danny Richmond, 24.
Was anyone else home at the time?
His roommate was a 50-year-old woman, Savannah Neal.
The responding officer tells me that this apartment is rented by one Savannah Neal, a 50-year-old who Danny Richmond had met at their place of mutual employment.
The age difference between Savannah and Danny strikes Kenda as odd.
You have a 50-year-old female involved with a 24-year-old male. People tend to room with people of their own approximate age. Just on the surface, it would certainly seem as if this is some sort of temporary living circumstance.
Where's the roommate now?
Medical took her. She was pretty shaken up, but she wasn't injured in the attack.
Based on the preliminary report given by emergency dispatch, police believe Danny was the 911 caller.
He was reporting someone breaking into the apartment, and he didn't know who it was.
Burglars, by definition, are sneak thieves. He is a frightened kind of criminal. So it is possible that this person breaks into this apartment and then discovers someone is there, i.e. the victim.
Oh, God.
And responds to a gunfire, killing him.
All right, so inside, see what we got.
But before Kenda can even enter the apartment, a clue is already waiting for him at the front door.
Burglars, because they're thieves, they try to pick locks, so they try to force a door open. Here, multiple shots have been fired at this door. That is not the act of a burglar. This guy doesn't even care who hears it. That is the act of a violent person with a motive against somebody inside that door.
In addition to the shots fired at the door, the nature of Danny Richmond's fatal injuries provides further evidence of how and where the shooting took place.
He is shot in the central chest. Now, the interesting thing about his body is there is no stippling, tattooing, burn marks from muzzle flash, none of that, which means the shot is fired from in excess of 48 inches away.
Did you find any casings?
Nah, it's probably a revolver.
It appears that Danny was eating. There was a plate of food on the nightstand. That tells us that he was relaxed at one point inside that bedroom just before he was shot.
He's married. I guess they can explain why he's crashing here.
Maybe he's married and he's not getting along. And because he's having these issues, a co-worker who is Savannah Neal allows him to stay in her apartment.
Could Danny's estranged wife be responsible for his death? It's a possibility Kenda's more than willing to consider.
So they had a mystery on their hand. Who is Danny's wife and where is she?
Now, the interesting thing about it is, why is Savannah not dead? Why does she not have any evidence of being pistol whipped or any evidence of anything? It's clear the shooter is only after one person, and it's not her. It's Danny Richmond.
While Kenda assesses the scene in the bedroom, investigators canvass the perimeter for any sign of the killer.
Right, let's try,
Lieutenant, they need you outside.
When we go out the back door of the apartment complex,
so what have you got?
Looks like a 357.
we find shell casings at the threshold of that door.
The odds are this is a revolver, and the odds are further the killer was dumping expanded casings and replacing them with live rounds.
I'll go ahead and bag those up for evidence for us.
Yes, Lieutenant.
Now, reloading a gun sometimes is habit for military. I'm going to pay attention to anybody that might be military involved in this. It's possible because there's so many military people in Colorado Springs.
But with little concrete information about the shooter, Kenda turns his attention to the victim, Danny Richmond.
They decide to go to Danny's job and try to talk to a coworker where he's a nursing home assistant. Hopefully they will open the door to some kind of information if he's had any problems with anyone at work or a friend.
Hi.
Hi.
Can I help you?
I'm Lieutenant Kenda from the Colorado Springs Police Department.
We explained to her that we are looking into the shooting death of Danny Richmond, and she almost collapses because she knows Danny Richmond.
Can you tell us a little bit about Danny? What kind of a person he is?
Yeah, he was great.
Danny was extremely polite. He loved his job. He had a reputation for helping people. He was involved in the community and had thoughts of opening his own nursing home so he could help people in his own way.
Savannah Neal and this young man became friends at work. Savannah was 30 plus years older than Danny and sort of acted as his mentor.
Do you know how long he'd been staying with Savannah? Had he recently been kicked out of his house by his wife?
And she seems confused. Well, no, he's not really married.
What about the wedding ring?
He wore that to show his commitment to Savannah.
Well, no.
They were sleeping together.
Knowing that they are now romantically and physically involved with each other and the wide disparity in their ages makes it obvious to me that this probably isn't Savannah's first rodeo. Who else is in her life that isn't happy about her new arrangement? We're investigating the death of 24-year-old Danny Richmond. And now we determine through a coworker, he's involved with another coworker who's quite a bit older than he is. Now that opens a whole new dimension, as they're a third player in this little happy duo.
Can you tell me more about Danny's relationship with Savannah?
For Danny, the relationship with Savannah was so serious that he had every intent of marrying her after her divorce was final.
His name was James Neal. They've been married for like 25 years. They were having problems, so she moved out and got herself an apartment.
Kenda thinks back to the pile of casings at the crime scene and follows up on a previous thought.
Do you have any idea if James was in the military?
I think he was in the Army. Now he just works as a security guard somewhere down the road.
Well, he fits rather nicely. A military ex-husband, and they're having problems. Maybe doesn't like to let go. Maybe he sees Danny as a reason why he cannot let go.
James Neal has shot to the top of Kenda's suspect list. But before he questions James, Kenda hopes to gather additional information from his wife, Savannah, who's being held at a nearby hospital for observation.
Miss Neal?
When I arrived at the hospital, she's sitting on a bed. She's still very distressed, but she's not hyperventilating.
I've been talking to some of your coworkers, and they were telling me that you were having some problems with your husband.
Yes. It's been bad for a while. We weren't getting along, and so I moved out. But then when James found out about my relationship with Danny, things started to get really scary.
She explains that he had an extremely jealous reaction. He began stalking Danny, stalking her, making threats.
Savannah told us he would follow her all over the city. She would see him in parking lots when she'd go grocery shopping. She would see him when she'd arrive at work. It got to the point where everywhere she went, she looked to see if James was following her.
Kenda asks Savannah to describe the events leading up to Danny Richmond's death.
She said, well, it was 12:30 or so. Danny goes to school at night because he works during the day. He doesn't come home until quite late.
That's great.
I fixed him something to eat, and we sat on the bed while he ate something from his plate, and we just talked.
And then all of a sudden, I heard this like loud pounding sound at the front door.
Open the door, I know he's in there.
I'm gonna call the police.
Open the door.
The door explodes. And in comes James Neal. He is alone. In his hand is a 6-shot revolver. He walks right past her. He walks to the bedroom door.
I didn't know what to do. I just heard James yelling.
Just couldn't leave her alone, cause she's my wife, not yours.
And she hears a shot in that bedroom. He then walks out of the apartment, saying nothing to her. This happened in less than 30 seconds, start to finish.
Oh, God.
You just couldn't leave her alone, could you? She's my wife, not yours.
I'm very sorry.
She's getting all distressed again because now she's reliving the moment. So I thought, okay, well, this will wait for some time. We have the basic facts. James Neal is the shooter. Now we just need to find him.
Could you tell me what James drives?
It's Ray Camry. Do you need the license plate number?
Absolutely.
I put out an APB on the information that Savannah provides me. I explain this possibly contains James Neal. He is wanted for murder, should be considered armed and dangerous.
Minutes later, Officer Jerry Owens, out on routine patrol, spots a gray Camry with plates matching Savannah's description.
Everyone be advised, I've got that murder suspect. He's going to be eastbound on Bernard.
I noticed it coming around the corner toward me at a high rate of speed.
Southbound Bernard.
And I'm thinking, well, we're going to have a chase.
Circle back your actual address. Please stop that. Boulder Bernard.
Then all of a sudden he just pulled over. I'm thinking, well, maybe this isn't the guy because he's just pulling over normally.
Driver, turn the car off, throw the keys out, and let me see your hand.
He gave commands and he didn't move. So he approached it.
I'm sort of weighing all my options. What if he does this? What if he does that? Before I get to the car. I went up to the driver and noticed the individual had blood on his left shoulder. That made me curious. Looked a little bit closer. I saw blood on his stomach area.
It's now clear to Officer Owens that James Neal has just shot himself.
Mr. Neal is sitting behind the driver's wheel with his head in his chest. He is alive. He's got blood all over him. Next to him on the passenger seat is a .357 Magnum revolver.
You touch that gun, I'm going to shoot you where you sit.
I don't want your help. I want to die.
31, I need an EMS and first responder ASAP. I got one with multiple gunshot wounds.
He was speaking very coherently to me at the time, and I asked him, when did you shoot yourself? And he stated as I was pulling him over. I did not see any muzzle flash from the gun at that time. He must have had it pressed close.
The next obvious question is, why'd you shoot yourself in the shoulder and the stomach? That's a pretty awkward place to shoot yourself if you want to die.
In my opinion, James Neal's intent was to kill himself, but he lost his courage. And that's why he shot himself in the stomach and the shoulder.
So I get there just as they're putting him on a gurney.
Please let me die.
I shot my wife's boyfriend.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Investigation is now closed.
James gets to the hospital, he gets attention, and he survives.
At trial, James Neal is convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 45 years in prison. But the void left by the young man whose life he took can never be filled.
The tragedy that is left in the wake of this is immeasurable.
Danny is young. He is in love with this woman, irrespective of their difference in age. They say love is a many-splendored thing. It is, but it can include hate. Things of relationships can turn to nightmare scenarios very quickly. This is one of those.
They say Berlin forgets nothing. Buildings change, logos change, but underneath the glass and concrete, old stories keep breathing, waiting for the wrong whisper to drag them back into the light. Tonight, we rewind to a winter that never really ended, to a night in 1999 when a bank in the center of the city was emptied with surgical precision. No alarms, no witnesses, no names. The city called it a robbery. The investigators called it an inside job. Years later, everyone else just calls it what it really is, a cold case that refuses to die. It begins with a silence that shouldn't exist, a security system that doesn't beep, a vault that should be sealed until morning but stands slightly open, like a wound. At 6:02 a.m., a patrol car pulls up to the branch on Friedrichstrasse. December fog presses low over the street, swallowing the sound of early trams and the first tired cyclists. From the outside, the bank looks painfully normal. No shattered glass, no blown doors, no spray of bullets, just the bland, corporate calm of another workday about to begin. Inside, it's different. The alarms are dead, the cameras are blind, and the air feels wrong, too still, as if the room has just finished holding its breath. The branch manager, Klaus Richter, 48, married, 2 kids, 22 years with the bank, is waiting just inside the lobby. His tie is crooked, his face washed out, his hands refusing to stay still. He keeps repeating the same sentence to the officers as if repetition can somehow reverse time. This is impossible, this is impossible. He arrived at 5:45 like he always does. Same key, same side door, same lonely fluorescent glow. But the moment he stepped inside, he noticed it. No background hum, no faint buzz from the alarm panel, no comforting chatter of machines. Behind the glass, the monitors in the security room were dark. And downstairs, somewhere beneath his feet, something heavy and invisible had shifted. The officers follow him down the short corridor, past framed corporate posters and a pot plant that already looks out of place in this new reality. In the security room, the panel that should resemble a cockpit might as well be a tombstone. The small indicator lights that are supposed to be steady green or blinking red are dead. The screens show one last frozen frame of the empty lobby, then static, then nothing. When Klaus keys in his override code, there's no resistance, no error message, no mechanical sigh. The system doesn't even bother to refuse him. It's not malfunctioning, it's gone. Somewhere, on purpose, someone pulled the plug. They descend to the vault level. The stairwell smells faintly of metal and recycled air. Down here, the city disappears. There are no car horns, no footsteps from the street, no voices, just the echo of their own movements. The corridor that leads to the vault is long and clinical, lined with white-painted walls and dull safety signs. At the end of it, behind a glass partition, stands the door. 4 tons of reinforced steel, precision hinges, massive bolts, the last line of defense between the public and everything they don't talk about. Today, that door is shifted open by the width of a hand, not forced, not bent, just open. When the officers push it wider, the noise it makes seems to scrape across every nerve in the room. Inside, the vault glows under steady white light, rows of safety deposit boxes, columns of labeled shelves. It should look dense, packed, reassuringly heavy. It doesn't. It looks looted. Dozens of boxes hang open, tiny metal mouths gaping. Others remain perfectly closed, untouched, as if someone walked past them on purpose. On the shelves where cash cassettes and bundles of securities are kept, there are gaps like missing teeth, empty spaces marked only by dangling tags and exposed rails. There is no debris, no scattered papers, no dropped jewelry. Whoever came here was careful, controlled. They didn't fight the vault, they cooperated with it. Later, when the bank's internal audit finishes the count, the figures sound unreal even to the people reading them. Between 8 and 10 million euros in currency, bonds, bearer shares, portable valuables. Wealth you can move across borders without asking permission, without leaving too many fingerprints. Some of it is insured, some of it exists in a gray zone where no one wants to admit it ever sat on those shelves. Officially, the bank will call it a significant incident. Unofficially, the men in quiet offices will ask each other another question. What else was taken that can never show up on a balance sheet? By 7:00 a.m., the first detectives arrive. Detective Superintendent Leonhard Weiss steps out of his unmarked sedan, breath fogging in front of him, coffee already going cold in his hand. He has seen plenty: break-ins, cash-in-transit ambushes, scenes where panic writes itself in broken glass and blood on tiles. This is not one of those scenes. This is the other kind, the kind that whispers. No chaos, no adrenaline, just a precise, deliberate absence. Things that should be there aren't. Weiss walks the route, as the thieves must have walked it, from side entrance to security room to vault. He notes what isn't out of place: no broken locks, no burned wiring, no crude repairs on the alarm panel. It doesn't look like a system that's been attacked. It looks like a system that willingly closed its eyes. In the vault, he runs his fingers lightly over the cold metal of the open boxes, reading the tiny engraved numbers, watching the pattern of what was hit and what was left. None of this feels random. People with this level of access and skill don't improvise. They rehearse. He asks the first question that will echo through every report, every meeting, every quiet argument for years. Who has the codes? The bank's people give him the list. It starts short and spreads like ink. Branch manager, deputy manager, 2 senior cash handlers, head of security, regional director with override, external technicians with temporary access for maintenance. Every new name is another potential crack in the wall that wasn't supposed to crack. Every new face is a possible traitor. Outside, the street is starting to wake up. Commuters slow down as they pass the bank, drawn by the sight of uniforms at the door, a strip of tape across the entrance, a camera being carried inside. By mid-morning, the first news vans appear. Berlin's media can smell a story before the police even agree there is one. A rumor has already slipped out. High security vault, no visible break-in, millions missing. Words like professional, inside job, organized crime begin to crawl across screens and headlines while the investigators are still trying to work out whether any clue at all has been left behind. On television, a calm anchor introduces the story with that particular tone reserved for someone else's disaster. On the lower third of the screen, a caption burns in stark letters: Berlin 1999 bank heist, no alarms, no suspects. In the precinct behind closed blinds and humming fluorescent light, Weiss watches the security footage that survived. Earlier that year, the bank upgraded its system, adding a separate backup recorder that writes footage to tape on a slight delay. The result is incomplete, harsh, grainy, but it's something. On the monitors, they see the last normal hours, employees leaving, lights flicking off one section at a time, the night guard making his final rounds. At 0016, he appears in the lobby camera, checking the front door, touching the handle just to be sure, then glancing up, bored, at the lens. At 0017 exactly, the feed cuts. Not a slow fade, not a dirty glitch, clean flat black on every channel. At the same second, the technicians go quiet when they see it. That's not how it fails, one murmurs. That's how someone turns it off. Weiss pushes outward. Berlin watches everything. If you can't see a crime directly, you can sometimes see its reflection. Traffic cameras at the nearby intersection, tram cameras, security systems from shops and offices within a tight radius. If a team carried heavy bags out of that building between midnight and dawn, they had to cross the sidewalk, touch the street, appear in at least one lens. For days, detectives sit hunched in dark rooms, fast-forwarding through hours of night. They see trams sliding past under streetlights, a drunk couple weaving home, a taxi pausing, taking on a passenger, moving on, a lone cyclist, head down, no lights. In the exact window when the vault must have been opened and emptied, the sidewalk in front of the bank is eerily ordinary. People cross alone, no group moving together, no van idling with doors open, no one visibly straining under weight. If the thieves walked out the front, they looked like any other early riser. If they used another way, it's one no one has found. As the timeline sharpens, more unsettling details emerge. The list of hit safety deposit boxes starts to look like a secret map of the city's quiet power. One belongs to a retired judge, famous for harsh sentences in corruption trials. Another is registered to a small import-export firm with discreet links to partners in Eastern Europe and an ongoing, sensitive tax inquiry. A third belongs to a company that, on paper, barely exists. Its listed address leads to an empty lot and a mailbox with no name. None of this proves anything. But it whispers. Whoever planned this heist understood not just the layout of the vault, but the significance of what was inside. Outside the official briefings, Berlin writes its own version. In bars, in smoke-stained kitchens, on late trains, people share rumors. Some say it was a foreign syndicate, testing the city's response times before something bigger. Others insist it was the work of former intelligence operatives, men who used to deal in access codes and secrets. now selling those skills to the highest bidder. There are darker versions too, spoken low, that the money was never the point, that one very specific box held something dangerous, documents, photos, a ledger of names, evidence someone was willing to erase at any cost, even if it meant tearing open a vault in the middle of Berlin. By the end of the first week, Weiss has a wall in his office covered in printouts, floor plans, timelines, staff photos, maps of nearby cameras, technical diagrams of the alarm system. At the center of it all, pinned slightly higher than the rest, is a blown-up still from the last frame before the cameras died. At first glance, it looks empty, just the lobby, the tiled floor, the glass doors, the posters advertising mortgages and retirement plans. But at the far edge of the image, near the doorway to the staff corridor, there's a small dark distortion, a shape that doesn't quite belong. A blur, like a body half outside the frame. The technicians shrug, call it compression noise, an artifact, meaningless. Weiss circles it with a pen anyway. For him, it's the case in miniature, a shadow at the edge of vision, always there, never clear. While the investigators chase that shadow, the city moves on. ATMs are restocked. People line up at counters without knowing that, meters below, the space they trust to hold their secrets was stripped clean. The evening news runs follow-up segments, then moves on to the next scandal. Most viewers forget the details. They remember only the phrase, the Berlin bank with the vault that opened itself. But for the people who worked in that building, and for a detective who can't shake the feeling that he's being watched every time he walks past a reflective surface, the story doesn't go away. It sits in the corner of the room like an uninvited guest. Officially, the file gets a case number, a category, a place in the system. Unofficially, among the people who stay late in the squad room, drinking lukewarm coffee in the glow of the last desk lamp, it picks up another name, the Berlin Vault Phantom. No suspect, no footprint that makes sense. Just a closed door, an empty room, and a question lodged in the winter air over Friedrichstrasse. Who walked into that bank in 1999, opened a fortress from the inside, and vanished without a trace? And why, after all these years, does it still feel like that person is somewhere out there, calm, patient, listening, waiting for the city to finally stop asking? By the second day, the bank stops pretending this is a technical glitch. The PR statements lose their polish. The words isolated incident and internal review sound thinner each time they're read aloud. And behind the frosted glass of the conference rooms, the tone changes from concern to panic. Upstairs, they are calculating losses and reputations. Downstairs, in a windowless interrogation room 2 floors below street level, they are calculating something else. Who might have the stomach to walk through a silent bank and open a vault like it was nothing? Klaus Richter sits under a hard ceiling light, tie off, collar open, hands flat on the table as if he's afraid of what they'll do if they're allowed to move. No handcuffs, not yet. But the room itself is a kind of restraint. Weiss sits across from him, a notebook closed in front of him, a file he hasn't bothered to open. He's already read everything twice. 22 years with the bank, stable, predictable, mortgage, school fees, a modest car, no red flags in his account activity, no sudden debts, no overseas trips, no unexplained cash. It doesn't matter. Right now, everyone with a code is guilty until the evidence runs out. What time did you leave the bank the night before? Weiss asks, voice calm, almost bored. 21:10, Klaus says, after the end-of-day reconciliation. Anyone see you leave? The night guard, 2 colleagues, He stops as if listening to his own words on delay. I always leave then, it's in the log. Weiss nods as if the logs are gospel. They both know they aren't. Logs are just stories machines tell about humans, and machines can be made to lie. What time did you arrive in the morning? 5:45. You never arrive earlier than that? Sometimes 5:40, 5:35, depending on the tram. And today? 5:45. His mouth twitches. You have the camera. Weiss lets the silence stretch. Then, walk me through what you did, every step, from the moment you opened the side door. Klaus repeats the sequence he's already given 3 times. Key in the lock. Beep that didn't come. A corridor that felt wrong. A panel that was dead. A fear so strong it made his hands shake before he even reached the vault level. His story is consistent. Too consistent, some would say. But fear has a way of printing itself in memory with sharp lines and dark ink. In the next room, separated by a thin wall and a thicker sense of dread, the deputy manager waits for his turn. After him, the veteran cashier. Then the head of security, a man with a military haircut and a temper he's trying to suffocate with politeness. Each one repeats a variation of the same refrain. I did my job. I locked what I was supposed to lock. I checked what I was supposed to check. I didn't see anything unusual. The polygraph arrives on the 3rd day, wheeled in by a specialist with a neutral face and a soft way of telling people that the machine isn't magic, it just measures stress. It doesn't matter. To the staff, it might as well be a verdict handed down by a god. Rubber tubes around chests, sensors on fingers, fingertips sweating against metal, questions stripped down to bare bones. Did you give anyone your code? Did you disable any alarm? Did you know about the robbery before Monday morning? Some hearts race, some pulses spike. No one fails in a way that brings handcuffs slamming onto the table. While the humans sweat and stammer, the forensic technicians go to work on the only witness that doesn't get nervous. The system itself. They pull the alarm panel from the wall like a black box from a crash site. They trace wires, log serial numbers, dump memory. In a cramped lab with windows half covered by printouts, a woman in a gray hoodie and round glasses taps through layers of configuration menus, muttering under her breath. This is her crime scene. Lines of code instead of fingerprints, diagnostic logs instead of blood spatter. Weiss stands behind her, hands in his pockets, watching lines scroll past. "Tell me it's broken," he says. "It's not broken," she replies, not taking her eyes off the screen. It did exactly what someone told it to do. She brings up a time-stamped entry. "Here, 001124. Remote access session opened using service-level credentials. Valid. No error flags." "Remote access," Weiss repeats. "From where?" "We're working on that, but this isn't some kid guessing passwords. These are vendor codes. Top tier. They're not supposed to sit in any local system. They're not supposed to be written down. They're not supposed to be used except in documented maintenance windows." She clicks again. 001403. All armed zones set to maintenance mode. Sensors blind. 01549. System powered down. Cameras lose feed on delay. She leans back. It didn't fail. It closed its eyes on command. Vendor codes. Service credentials. Words that taste like betrayal in corporate boardrooms. Weiss takes them to the next meeting with the security company that installed the system. In a sleek office smelling of coffee and toner, executives insist their protocols are airtight. Only a handful of senior engineers have access to the master credentials. Every use of those credentials is logged. Every remote connection is tracked. The representative smiles professionally as he says it, hands folded, cufflinks catching the light. "So show me the log," Weiss replies. The engineer's smile falters just enough to be noticeable. "There was an anomaly," he says, choosing each word carefully. "We see evidence of a connection, but the origin IP doesn't align with any of our registered service terminals. It's nonsensical." "Nonsensical how?" "It resolves to an internal loopback, a computer talking to itself. That shouldn't be possible from outside." He hesitates, then admits the part they would have preferred to hide. "The master credential was used, the highest override we have, the one we keep for emergency patches, for catastrophic failures. It's never been used on this site before, not once, officially." The word hangs in the air like a slow, poisonous fog. Officially. Back at the precinct, on the board where Weiss collects fragments of truth and lies, a new headline forms in his head. Berlin 1999, vault robbed by a ghost with a password. While he chases the ghost in the wires, another storm brews in the lobby of the bank. The holders of the safety deposit boxes begin to arrive, one by one, name by name, story by story. They are furious, fearful, in shock. Some shout, some whisper, some refuse to speak without a lawyer present. The bank ushers them into a side room, offers coffee, murmurs apologies. Police officers wait with forms and questions that feel obscene in their bluntness. "What was in your box?" "We need an approximate value." "Can you provide any proof it was there?" A retired judge with thin lips and a spine still rigid from years on the bench sits down, folds his hands, and says he kept personal documents and some cash. His eyes say there was more, much more. He refuses to elaborate, citing privacy, dignity, old habits of secrecy that have survived multiple governments. A businessman in an expensive coat leans close, voice low. He says he kept sensitive contracts there, nothing illegal, just complicated. He mentions investigations in another jurisdiction, says things like opportunistic journalism and politically motivated raids. There is a faint tremor in his hand when he lights his cigarette outside, under a no smoking sign. Then there is the woman in her late 60s, coat buttoned up to her throat, hands clenched around a worn leather handbag. Widow. Lives alone in a flat, 2 U-Bahn stops away. She doesn't shout. She doesn't ask about compensation. She just looks at the list of open boxes and nods slowly when she sees her number. She tells Weiss she kept jewelry there, her husband's watch, a stack of letters bound with a ribbon. When he asks if anyone else knew she rented a box, she hesitates. "A week before this happened," she says, eyes fixed on some point on the far wall, "a man called my home. He said he was from the bank. He asked if I would be visiting my box this month. I thought it was, customer service." Her voice cracks around the words. "He knew my name. He knew the box number. He even mentioned the date of the contract." Weiss goes very still. "Did you recognize his voice?" "No." "Did he ask for your code?" "No, he just Wanted to know if I planned to come in. I said I might after the new year. He thanked me. Very polite. She finally looks at him. Was that them? He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. Another line goes up on the board. Unknown male, pre-event contact, data verified from inside. He digs into phone logs, tracing calls from the bank's main line, from its branch numbers, from spoofed IDs. Most of the trails lead nowhere or loop back into the dense jungle of the telecom network. But a pattern emerges. 3 other box holders report similar calls. Always polite, always precise, always framed as routine service. All 4 of those boxes are empty now, stripped clean. Outside the glass and steel, the city's narrative mutates. Inside Job, blares one tabloid, splashing the faces of the branch staff across the front page with brutal, unflattering photos. Berlin Bank of Ghosts, declares another, with an illustration of a faceless figure walking through a wall of money. Radio hosts crack jokes about a master key to the city. Callers speculate live on air about mafia, ex-Stasi, corrupt cops. It's entertaining, at least to those whose secrets weren't just scooped up and carried into the dark. Inside the squad room, it's not entertaining. It's a grind. Interviews, cross-checks, dead ends. Each new piece of information narrows the scope and simultaneously blows it wide open. Inside, job plus remote access plus precisely targeted boxes. Whoever did this understood not just alarm systems and vaults, but people, their schedules, their fears, their habits, their weak spots. Weiss's team digs into the security company itself. Senior engineers are brought in for questioning. One name rises repeatedly in technical chatter, a systems architect who helped design the remote maintenance infrastructure, a quiet man who left the company abruptly 3 months before the heist. Official reason, personal burnout. Unofficial whispers, disagreements about protocol, about how much access was too much. They track him to a new address on the outskirts of the city. They find a small apartment, a stack of computer magazines, a fridge with more beer than food. They do not find him. He left a week before the robbery. No forwarding address, no family ties. His bank account shows a single large deposit from an untraceable source, then silence. Headline writes itself, one detective mutters. Genius engineer sells soul, vanishes with millions. Weiss doesn't smile. It's too neat, too convenient. Ghosts love convenient stories. They hide behind them. Weeks turn into months. The whiteboard in his office fills, then is erased and filled again. Suspects come into focus, then blur. A cashier with gambling debts, a technician with a cousin in organized crime, a night guard who years ago falsified his timesheets. Each one shines briefly under the harsh light of suspicion, then fades when alibis hold, when times don't match, when phone records tell different stories. The file grows thicker, the answers do not. The pressure doesn't ease, it shifts shape. At first, it's urgency. Find them before they flee the country, before the money scatters. Later, it's embarrassment. Still no arrest, still no lead. The phrase complex ongoing investigation becomes a shield everyone knows is thin. Politicians call privately, asking for reassurances. Bank executives call publicly, asking for updates they can feed to shareholders. A commissioner leans in the doorway of Weiss's office one evening, tie loosened, eyes tired, and says, "We need something, a name, a narrative," as if a story can substitute for a solution. Weiss gives him what he can. Probabilities, patterns, absence. It's not enough. Spring arrives. The trees along Friedrichstrasse turn green again, as if nothing ever happened under their branches. The bank replaces its signage, upgrades its security, holds staff training sessions full of new passwords and new promises. People still use the ATMs. They still step through the sliding doors with their paychecks, their savings, their hopes. Trust is a stubborn thing. It bends, it complains, but in the end, most people have nowhere else to put their money. Then, 6 months after the robbery, a small, ugly incident ignites another quiet alarm in Weiss's mind. It's not a breakthrough, not the dramatic confession everyone has secretly been hoping for. It's a fire. A stupid, almost insulting fire. At 3 a.m, an electrical blaze breaks out in a storage room at the regional office of the same security company that handled the bank's alarms. The official statement calls it a localized incident caused by faulty wiring. The fire brigade puts it out quickly. The building stands. No one is hurt. The damage is limited to one room and whatever happened to be stored there. What happened to be stored there, according to a short, irritated memo that lands on Weiss's desk 3 days later, includes several years of archive maintenance logs and a handful of physical backup tapes. Paper, plastic, old technology no one uses anymore, they say. All digitized elsewhere, they say. Nothing truly important. He doesn't believe in nothing truly important. He drives to the site, steps into the blackened room, breathes in the sour smell of melted plastic and extinguished dreams. Charred shelves, warped metal, boxes turned to soggy ash. An investigator from the fire brigade walks him through their findings. Point of origin, probable cause, no accelerants, no signs of forced entry, just bad luck and old wiring. Do you have an inventory of what was stored here? Weiss asks. In theory, the man says. In practice, the paper lists burned with the paper boxes. Weeks later, quietly, almost as an afterthought, Weiss learns that one of the items supposedly digitized elsewhere, but now impossible to locate, is a single tape from late 1999, labeled with a date and a code that matched the first week of the Berlin bank heist investigation. Not the main footage. They still have the frozen lobby image, the neat cut to black. This is something else. A technician's test recording. A backup of a backup. Something no one had thought about in years, because no one remembered it existed until they went looking to reassure him. Lost in the fire, the security company's representative says on the phone, his voice heavy with apologies. We are very sorry. It was an oversight in our duplication process. Oversight, another word that tastes like smoke and metal. Weiss hangs up and stares at the board, the circles, the arrows, the faces, the lines of text in different colors. The case has grown, swollen, mutated. It's no longer just about a vault and some missing millions. It's about gaps in systems, in memory, in records that should have survived but didn't. Somewhere between the bank's silent alarm, the remote master code, the polite phone calls to box holders, the vanished engineer, and the conveniently burned archive room, a pattern is trying to emerge. It's not a clean one. It's messy, smeared, like a fingerprint wiped too late. Outside, headlines have moved on. Elections, protests, new scandals. The Berlin bank heist appears occasionally as a nostalgic footnote, a reminder of the year the city learned that even steel and concrete can lie. For most people, it's just another unsolved story folded into the background noise of urban life. For one detective staring at the thin curl of smoke in an already cold case, it's something else. It's a question that won't sit down, a whisper at the edge of the frame, a sense that somewhere, someone is still working, still cleaning, still erasing, making sure that when history looks back at Berlin 1999, it sees only what it's allowed to see, and never the hand that reached through the dark and calmly switched the cameras off. Officially, the case goes from ongoing to pending to a phrase everyone understands but no one likes to write. Cold. There is no ceremony for that moment, no announcement, no black ribbon, no final press conference. It happens in a quiet office at the end of a corridor when a supervisor moves a file from one shelf to another and ticks a box in a database. No further actionable leads at this time. Resources reassigned. Priorities shifted. The city has new problems, new scandals, new emergencies. The Berlin Vault Phantom is no longer front-page news. It's a ghost story told over coffee in the forensic lab when the night runs long. For Weiss, the change is more personal and less visible. The whiteboard in his office is wiped clean. Old photos and floor plans are slid into plastic sleeves and clipped into a file thick enough to wedge a door open. The case number sits on a spine label in thin black type, sandwiched between burglaries and aggravated assaults that at least delivered someone to a courtroom. He doesn't fight the decision, not out loud. He signs the papers, hands over the box, watches it disappear onto a shelf. But the shape of the work has already carved itself into him. He carries it home, into his kitchen, into the quiet moments when the TV is on but not really watched. Years shift in subtle increments. New detectives arrive, bringing new slang, new technology, new disbelief that anyone ever tried to solve anything without GPS, without digital forensics, without a phone in every pocket on every suspect. Some of them know the Berlin bank heist only as a rumor, a training example, a what not to lose cautionary tale. In the academy, the instructors mention it in passing, the way a history teacher mentions a war long over. Unknown offenders, high sophistication, no closure. Turn to the next slide. Berlin changes too. The scars of the old city are plastered over with luxury developments and glass towers. The bank on Friedrichstrasse keeps its address but not its soul. The interior is redesigned, flattened into a more modern anonymity. New ATMs, new branding, a new slogan about trust and innovation. No plaque, no mention of the night the vault opened for strangers and swallowed 8 to 10 million euros without leaving a receipt. One November, 3 years after the heist, a junior detective named Nina Hartman stumbles across the file by accident. She's not looking for it. She's looking for a different case, a string of small-time robberies near Alexanderplatz that no one can get excited about. The archive room breathes dust and old cardboard. She runs her finger down a column of numbers, pulls out the wrong box, pops the lid, and finds the ghost waiting. The first thing that hooks her isn't the amount of money. It's a photograph. The blown-up still from the frozen security feed, the lobby empty, the floor shining, the posters neat, and that smudge at the edge of the frame like something the camera tried to forget. Someone has circled it in red ink, words scrawled beside it in tight handwriting. Possible figure, artifact. Look again. She does look again. She leans over the table, squints, angles the page. The smudge doesn't resolve. It stays ambiguous, defiant. The second thing that hooks her is the word remote, remote access, remote shutdown. A system that obediently closed its eyes on someone else's command. In her world, remote isn't exotic, it's normal. She grew up with networks, with DSL modems whining in bedrooms, with chat windows popping up at midnight. The idea that someone reached into a vault from somewhere else doesn't feel like a ghost trick to her. It feels like a problem that should leave more footprints than the original investigators could see. She takes the file upstairs, drops it lightly onto Weiss's desk. This one, she says, the big phantom, you worked it. He looks at the box the way someone looks at an old injury when the weather changes. That was a long time ago. I know, but you put cold case review possible in the margin of the last summary. He doesn't remember writing it, but there it is, his handwriting, cramped, a little angrier than usual. We write that when we don't want a thing buried, he says. Doesn't mean anyone listens. I'm listening, she answers. He studies her, mid-20s, sharp, restless, not yet used to the idea that some doors stay closed. Why this one, he asks. Because it bothers you, she says, nodding to the way his jaw tightened when he saw the file. And because the MO feels weirdly current, remote access, social engineering, targeted boxes. This doesn't feel like old-school heavy crews with explosives. It feels like something that crawled forward into now. He doesn't admit how relieved he is to hear someone else say it. Instead, he opens the box, lets the old papers breathe. The smell of aging paper and toner rises between them. Headlines clipped and stapled, diagrams, interview transcripts, technical reports from a security company that tried to sound competent and ended up sounding defensive. Hartman skims, absorbing details with the efficiency of someone raised on multiple screens. You never found out where the money went. No, Weiss says. Cash is liquid. Bearer bonds more so. It wasn't about tracking bills. It was about catching the hands that took them. We never saw those hands, just the fingerprints they didn't leave. Did anyone ever check later cases for similar patterns? Same vendor, same remote override tricks, same types of boxes hit? He did, in his way, in the limited time he could steal from new murders and new robberies. But the databases then were slower, cruder, less willing to talk to one another. Leads were lost in translation between jurisdictions. Not systematically, he admits. We flagged it with Europol. We asked our friends in Hamburg, Munich, Frankfurt to watch their banks. Nothing that looked like an exact copycat came back. Hartman taps a page with her finger. What about this engineer, the one who vanished? You ever get a trace on him? We chased him as far as we could, Weiss says. He left clean. No forwarding address, no active accounts, no registered phone. Officially, he's just another German who decided he hated winter and moved somewhere cheaper. Unofficially? Unofficially, I think he either got bought or got buried. She doesn't flinch. If he got bought, he might have kept working. Different names, different companies, same skills. If he got buried, someone had to do the burying. She closes the file gently. What if this isn't a one-off? What if this was a pilot? A word he remembers from one of the more paranoid theories floated in those early days. A test run, a proof of concept. If you can rob one vault with a password and a few phone calls, why stop? Why not refine the method, sell it, franchise it? Hartman requests permission to run a cross-jurisdictional pattern search. It's the kind of thing that would have taken months of letters and faxes back in 1999. Now it takes a request routed through 3 layers of bureaucracy and a polite reminder to someone in cybercrime who owes her a favor. She feeds the system parameters, high-security bank or vault robbery, unforced entry, alarm systems disabled by remote command or unexplained maintenance mode, safety deposit boxes targeted selectively, significant value, no resolution. The machine thinks in silence while she stares at the progress bar. Somewhere in the building, a coffee machine hisses. A printer rattles. Outside, the city hums with a kind of constant, low-grade noise that never existed in the old case files. When the search finally returns results, the list is mercifully short and disturbingly coherent. A bank in Milan, 2001. Alarms still armed on paper. Sensors reporting no breach. Vault found open in the morning. Several boxes stripped. A private wealth facility in Zurich, 2002. No sign of forced entry. Cameras show nothing between closing and opening hours. But an internal log records a maintenance override in the middle of the night with no technician on site. A small but exclusive vault service in Barcelona, 2003. Clients arrive one Saturday to find that while the main vault appears intact, a hidden intersection has been emptied. The selection of boxes eerily precise. Every file uses slightly different language, different laws, different procedures, different ways of recording the same absence. But the heartbeat is the same. No alarms, no broken doors, no suspects. A quiet surgical incision into places that were supposed to be safe. Each case sits in its own national archive, stamped with its own number, suffocating under its own unfinished paperwork. No one had ever told them they might be siblings. Hartman prints the summaries, pinning them next to the Berlin timeline, distances across the map. A series of dots marching west and south from Germany, like someone drawing a diagram only they understand. Cold case cluster, she says softly. Different cities, same phantom. Weiss feels a strange mix of anger and vindication. Anger that no one connected them sooner. Vindication that the thing that has been gnawing at him all these years isn't just his imagination. We're looking at someone who understands the systems better than the people who built them, he says. Or someone who has access to those people on a level we never proved. Maybe both, Hartman answers. An architect and a salesman. Someone who designs the method and someone who sells it to whichever client needs a clean hole punched in a vault and a few very specific secrets removed. The word client hangs in the room like cold smoke. It shifts the whole story. This isn't just about thieves chasing money. It's about someone hiring them to remove something that can't be insured, can't be replaced, can't be openly reported missing. She looks again at the list of Berlin box holders whose losses were vague, whose answers were evasive, whose lawyers were noisy, the retired judge, the import-export firm, the ghost company with a mailbox for an address. What if the money was just the service fee, she asks. What if one box in that vault was the real job and everything else was camouflage? It's a thought that had flickered in the early investigation, never quite catching fire. Too volatile, too hard to chase without cooperation from people who refused to admit what they'd stored in those steel rectangles. Now, with similar scars appearing in other cities, it feels less like conspiracy and more like method. Hartman digs deeper. She requests old maintenance logs from the foreign banks, technical reports from their security vendors, redacted case notes from colleagues abroad. Sometimes she's stonewalled, sometimes she's indulged. Sometimes a harried technician on another end of the continent sends her a zipped file at 2 a.m. with a note that says, "Don't quote me, but this stinks." Patterns emerge in technical language, remote sessions from unusual IPs, master credentials used at odd hours, audit trails that show gaps or anomalies that were never fully explained because no one wanted to admit their system could be compromised by design. The same security company's name pops up in 2 of the 3 foreign cases, not always as the main contractor, but as a silent partner, a consultant, a name buried in the fine print of a maintenance agreement. In the middle of a long night surrounded by these echoes, Hartman finds another small, strange thread, an internal email buried in the digital archive of the German security firm, apparently missed when the rest of the relevant documents accidentally burned years ago. It's a brief message from a mid-level engineer to a superior, dated 2 months before the Berlin heist. The subject line is a single word, concern. The body is just 3 sentences. We are granting too much theoretical remote access with these master credentials. In the wrong hands, a single compromise could lead to multi-site failures. We need stricter compartmentalization before something happens. There is no reply in the file, no follow-up. The engineer who wrote it, the same name as the man who left, took a large deposit and vanished. Hartman prints the email, lays it on the desk between them. He warned them, she says. Someone listened, just not in the way he hoped. Outside, a storm rolls in over Berlin. Rain streaking down the precinct windows, city lights blurring into smeared lines. Inside, the cold case file breathes differently now. It's no longer just a story of one winter, one vault, one detective's unresolved obsession. It's part of a larger map, a series of precise surgical strikes that carved out chunks of the financial underworld and walked away clean. They called it a bank heist. It might have been a data erasure. They called it a robbery. It might have been a cleanup. In the early hours, when most of the building is dark and the only sounds are the hum of servers and the distant whoosh of a cleaning machine down the hall, Weiss stands alone in his office and looks at the new board Hartman has built. Berlin, Milan, Zurich, Barcelona. 4 dots, 4 cold cases, 4 versions of the same impossible crime. He thinks of the widow clutching her handbag, remembering the polite phone call from the bank. He thinks of the burned archive room, the missing tape. He thinks of the master credential, a skeleton key drifting through wires, opening doors it should never touch. A headline forms in his mind, hard and clean as a steel edge. International Vault Ghost, cold cases linked after years in the dark. It won't appear in any paper, not yet, maybe never. But in this room, in this moment, the story changes shape. The phantom that haunted one Berlin basement extends its shadow across borders, across time, across the comfortable lie that high security is unbreakable. The case is still cold, no names, no faces, no arrests. But the silence around it has shifted. The breath that once belonged only to one building on Friedrichstrasse now belongs to an invisible figure moving from city to city, switching off cameras like light switches, leaving nothing behind but empty boxes and a question that has grown too big for one file to hold. Who is commissioning the perfect crimes everyone is too embarrassed, too compromised, or too afraid to truly investigate? The thing about cold cases is that they don't move in straight lines. They don't march toward a climax. They circle, they stall, they come back in flashes, in fragments, in the wrong order. One day it's just an old box on a shelf. The next, it's the center of the room, sucking all the air out. For Weiss and Hartman, the Berlin 1999 bank heist has crossed that line. It's no longer a curiosity, it's gravity. They start where every detective story pretends to start and almost never does, with paperwork. Hartman dives into correspondence that predates the heist, combing through years of contracts between the bank and the security firm, addendums, upgrades, change requests. It's a forest of legal language, dense and deliberately opaque. Somewhere inside, there should be a path that explains why a single company ended up with such intimate control over so many vaults in so many cities. Most of it is boring. Most of it is exactly what you'd expect: risk mitigation, liability clauses, warranties, pages and pages that say we are not responsible in slightly different ways. But then there's a rider, a slim add-on to a larger contract, barely half a page long, written in the kind of simple, clear language that makes Weiss uneasy. The title: Enhanced Remote Diagnostic Program. The gist: in exchange for a nominal monthly fee, the security company reserves the right to establish persistent remote channels into certain high-value sites, allowing rapid support and intervention in case of software irregularities or potential faults. It sounds harmless. It sounds like convenience. It sounds like an excuse for a permanent backdoor. The dates line up. The Berlin Bank signed this rider in late 1998. The Milan Institution, early 2000. The Zurich facility, mid-2001, Barcelona 2002, each one enrolled in a program that promised smoother operations and ended with an empty vault. Hartman prints the rider and pins it dead center between the four cities. Cold case pattern, she says. They sold the key to the castle as a service. Weiss stares at the neat lawyer-approved words. Who wrote this? He asks. The author listed at the bottom is a legal department drone who barely remembers the document when they track him down. Over the phone, he insists it was industry standard, a response to growing demand for digital oversight. No, he says, he never imagined it could be abused. Yes, he's deeply concerned to hear it might have been. He uses phrases like retrospective hindsight and unforeseen exploitation. When asked who pushed for the rider internally, his memory turns to fog. But memory isn't the only thing that records pressure. Emails do, even when their senders hope they don't. With help from cybercrime, Hartman's fingers sink deeper into the company's old mail archives. Time has not erased everything, just enough to be suspicious. In one thread, a senior sales executive congratulates his team on successfully upselling the remote diagnostic program to key financial partners. He mentions a consulting firm that helped craft the pitch. The name of that firm is bland, forgettable, the kind of thing you'd scroll past in a directory of management gurus. They show up, say efficiency until the room nods, send an invoice, disappear. Weiss circles the name anyway. Consultants, he says, the one species that always survives. They dig. The consulting firm, as it existed back then, doesn't exist anymore, dissolved, assets transferred, a shell folded into another shell. The organs moved under a new skin. But the people, some of the people, remain. One partner retired to a villa in Portugal. One moved to a different firm in London. One died in a car accident in 2004. Rain, speed, an unlit country road, a tree. Nobody looked twice. People crash into trees all the time. It's the fourth one who catches Hartman's eye. Listed as a technical liaison, his job was to translate security capabilities into client-facing language. In another life, you'd call that a salesman who understands how everything really works. He left the consulting firm in 2003, just after the Barcelona heist. Where he went after that is unclear. The trail runs cold in a sea of partial records and GDPR-shaped gaps. It would be easy to file him under interesting but unproven. Hartman doesn't. Meanwhile, in a different corner of the city, a rumor surfaces in a place where official channels rarely reach. It starts in a prison yard, where men in identical clothes walk in circles and trade information the way others trade cigarettes. A tall inmate with old tattoos, serving time for armed robbery, hears about the fresh interest in the old bank case from a bored guard with a big mouth. That inmate remembers a story he heard years ago in a different bar from a man he never saw again. He asks to speak to the police. They bring him into an interview room that smells like disinfectant and old coffee. He sits with the loose arrogance of someone who knows his days can only get marginally worse. He tells Hartman and Weiss he wants two things in exchange for his memory: a transfer to a prison closer to his family, and someone to take a fresh look at the parole board's last refusal. It's not extortion, it's negotiation. What do you have? Weiss asks. A ghost, the man says. A bank ghost. He explains 10, 12 years ago, before his current sentence, he worked small jobs with bigger people, not the ones who pulled triggers, the ones who paid for people like him when they wanted something done loud. One night, in the back corner of a smoky Neukölln bar, he met someone different, not local, not loud, a foreigner, maybe French, maybe Italian, accent smoothed out by too much travel. Well-dressed, wrong kind of shoes for Berlin winter. Not a gambler, not a drunk, not a man who needed to be there. He was asking questions, the inmate says, not about scores, about banks, about systems. Wanted to know how serious people kept their money. Who trusted boxes in vaults? Which banks had, how do you say, a reputation for looking the other way when cash came in from complicated places. At the time, the inmate thought the man was a cop trying to play clever. He joked, he deflected, he asked for another drink. But the man wasn't interested in his jokes. He was interested in something else. Fear. He said there was a new service, the inmate recalls, not for small guys like me, for bigger names, for people who had enemies. He called it bank cleaning. Like you clean a name off a list, like you clean a ledger. If you had a problem, say you kept something in a box you didn't want found in a raid or in a divorce or by some nosy prosecutor, he said there was a way to make that problem vanish. Whole vault, if necessary. No one arrested, no one charged, just gone. Hartman feels a chill crawl up her spine. Did he say how they did it? No, he wasn't selling to me. He was bragging to impress a girl. I was just in the room. He said it once, like a headline. We turn your vulnerability into someone else's cold case. Then he laughed, like a man who loves his own punchline. Weiss asks for details, name, face, distinguishing features. The inmate's memory is fuzzy. He was drinking, the music was loud, the lighting was bad, but he remembers one thing, a card. The foreigner left it on the table when he left, a little rectangle of thick, heavy paper with nothing but a logo in the center. A circle made of thinner, broken circles like a target or a maze. No phone number, no name, no website. If you need your bank cleaned, the man said, you'll know who to ask. What did you do with the card? Hartman asks, knowing the answer already. Lost it, he shrugs. Or it burned with some other life I don't have anymore. I didn't think it was real. Too clean. Too calm. I thought he was just talking big. Then, a couple of years later, I read about a vault in Zurich that opened itself, and I thought maybe some people liked his pitch. They walk out of the prison with more questions than when they went in. It could be nothing. It could be a man in a cage trying to trade fantasy for favors, but the phrase sticks. Bank cleaning. Turn your vulnerability into someone else's cold case. It sounds like a slogan, a brand. In the precinct, Hartman sketches the logo from the inmate's description. Circles, broken lines, a target that refuses to close. She stares at it until the lines blur. Then she digs into Europol's files, not through official categories this time, but through whispers. Intelligence notes, informant reports, fragments from operations that never quite came together. She looks for mentions of anything that sounds like bank cleaning, vault consulting, insurance removal, ledger washing. The search returns noise, lots of noise. But buried in that static, she finds a short field report from a French investigator attached to an organized crime task force dated 2005. It describes an overheard conversation in a Marseille bar between two mid-level players arguing about paying for the Circle guys to solve a box problem in Geneva. Circle guys. The report's author dismisses it as bar talk. No follow-up, no attachment. Another dead twig in a forest of half-noticed warnings. Hartman prints it, another pin in the map. Cold case, new language, Weiss says quietly, same ghost. They take their emerging picture to their superiors. International pattern, security firm, consulting layer, mysterious service, a possible brand circulating in the underworld, offering more than just theft. At first they get what they expect. Skepticism, fatigue, a sense that this is too big, too vague, too anchored in the past to justify real resources now. But then one phrase changes the room. Phrase, if this is a service, Hartman says, voice steady, it's probably still active. You don't build something like this for 4 heists and retire. You keep going. You refine it. You sell it. Somewhere, right now, someone could be paying to turn their liability into the next unsolved headline. It won't stop until someone interrupts the business model. The phrase right now cuts through the dust. Cold case suddenly feels present, ongoing, not a file on a shelf, but a shadow moving parallel to current operations. Reluctantly, the brass agrees to a limited joint tasking. They won't reopen Berlin 1999 in a formal public sense. But they will allow Weiss and Hartman to coordinate with foreign counterparts. They will allow the word task force to be whispered in hallways, as long as no one expects a budget or a press release. Quietly, they start making calls. Zurich, Milan, Barcelona, Marseille, London. They talk to people who were young detectives back then and are middle-aged now, the ones who still remember the taste of their own unsolved cases. Some are defensive, some are embarrassed, some are unexpectedly eager, grateful that someone is finally picking up a thread they had to drop. Patterns sharpen further. In each city, around the time of the vault incidents, there are secondary oddities. A technician who leaves a job unexpectedly, an unexplained system outage weeks before the crime, a sudden violent death in a context that doesn't quite fit, car accidents, muggings gone awry, suicide by hanging in a hotel room with no note, none of them obviously connected, all of them orbiting the same companies, the same contracts, the same invisible infrastructure. Cleanup, Hartman says, not just in banks, in people. There are no smoking guns, no clear line that starts with paperwork and ends with a name and an address, just more smoke, thicker now, colored by hints of something industrial-sized. And then, right when the trail feels like it's about to vanish into mist again, something happens that drags the ghost back into the spotlight with the blunt force of a new headline. A bank in Copenhagen reports an incident, not a full heist, not a sensational front-page caliber catastrophe, a technical anomaly in the middle of the night. An alarm panel that briefly drops into maintenance mode without a logged reason, cameras that freeze for exactly 90 seconds, then come back online, no vault opened, no boxes emptied. If the system hadn't self-corrected and flagged the anomaly, no one would even know it happened. But it did, and the security company responsible, a successor firm, absorbed and rebranded, carrying the same DNA as the one from Berlin 1999, the same architecture, the same enhanced remote diagnostic program, now under a different name and a shinier logo. Cold case, new glitch, same shadow. The report lands in their inbox like a small tremor before a quake. Hartman reads it 3 times, heart rate climbing. Weiss feels that old tension in his shoulders, the one he thought he left behind when the Berlin file went to the shelf. Somebody, he says slowly, just tried the door and found it still locked. Or, Hartman counters, they were testing something, checking whether their old keys still fit after all these years. Outside, the news doesn't know it yet. The city doesn't know. The world doesn't care. It's just a line in a technical incident report on some server, waiting for someone to understand what it really means. In a cramped office in Berlin, 2 detectives stare at that line and feel the air change. This isn't history anymore. This isn't just a story about what happened in 1999 and the missing money that walked through the walls. This is now. This is a ghost reaching out from an old vault into a new system, tapping lightly, confidently to see if anyone is watching. For the first time in years, the Berlin bank heist doesn't feel like a closed chapter. It feels like a prologue. The Copenhagen glitch is small enough to ignore and big enough to change everything. On paper, it's nothing. 90 seconds of blindness in a graveyard shift when the bank is closed, the city is half asleep, and even the security guards are more worried about their phones than their vaults. No loss reported, no open doors, no screaming headlines. In most systems, an anomaly like that gets logged, stamped, filed, and forgotten under a pile of more urgent malfunctions. Flickering lights, jammed printers, overheating servers. But it doesn't get forgotten, not this time. Because somewhere in Berlin, in an office that smells like old files and new coffee, there's a detective who has seen what happens when a system closes its eyes on command and never opens them again. And now, in a different city on a different night, the same reflex twitches, the same nerve fires, the same program wakes up, stretches, and checks whether the world still looks as compliant as it did in 1999. Hartman reads the technical description again, lips moving silently around the words. Maintenance mode triggered without valid operator input. Remote session ID present, origin flagged as internal. No recorded technician connection, automatic self-correction. She imagines a hand reaching through wires, fingers brushing the inside of the vault door, about to turn, then stopping, retreating, leaving only a smudge on a log file. They slipped, she says. Or they were interrupted, Weiss replies. By what? He taps the report. By progress. Back then, the systems trusted themselves too much. Now they second guess. They have watchdogs watching the watchdogs. Some new module probably saw something that didn't fit the pattern and pulled the plug before the intruder finished the sequence. A near miss, Hartman says, for them, and maybe our first near hit. They push for travel authorization. It's a bureaucratic dance, ugly and slow, the kind that strangles urgency with forms and signatures. But the word cross-border vulnerability has weight now. After a week of back and forth, they get permission to join a joint review in Copenhagen as observers. Not a task force, not an official reopening of anything. Just 2 ghosts from an old file walking into a fresh room. The Copenhagen bank looks like all the others in this story. Clean lines, polished glass, an interior designed to make money feel natural and safe. There's no crime scene tape, no media scrum, no cluster of frightened customers. To a passerby, it's just a building with a logo. Inside, though, the air carries a different tension. The IT staff look tired, defensive. The branch manager smiles too much. A representative from the security company sits at the end of the table, laptop open, fingers folded neatly on the keyboard, eyes flat. In a windowless conference room, the system logs are projected onto a white wall. Timestamps, session IDs, status flags, a timeline in numbers instead of blood and broken glass. At 0213, we see a remote session request, explains a Danish technician in precise English. Credentials, elevated service tier. This should correspond to a scheduled maintenance window, but there was no such window that night. No ticket, no engineer assigned. He points to the next line. At 0214, selected sensors change state to maintenance. Cameras enter a soft reset cycle. That's why you see the freeze in the recording. 90 seconds, then a watchdog process in the new firmware detects the inconsistency and forces a hard reboot. The system drops the session, rearms, and raises an internal anomaly flag. Hartman looks at the frozen camera frame from 0214. A corridor, a door, the edge of a vault icon on the overlay. No figures, no movement, an echo of that old Berlin image, emptiness framed as evidence. Origin of the session, Weiss asks. The technician sighs. That's the strange part. The IP traces to an internal address. A loopback, technically. It reports as if the system talked to itself, but that's not how these sessions work. They're supposed to come from outside through an encrypted tunnel from our service network. He doesn't need to say it. They've heard this melody before. The notes have changed a little, the tempo is faster, but the song is the same. Ghost session, master credential, a lie told by a network that thinks it's smarter than anyone watching it. The security company's representative clears his throat. We believe this to be a misconfiguration in the new firmware, he says smoothly. A phantom session. The system possibly mislogged internal maintenance as external activity. There is no evidence of malicious intrusion. Hartman turns to him. Who has the master credential for this site? She asks. It is not a single credential, he says, a little too quickly. It is a tiered schema, rotated regularly, protected by strict internal procedure. How many people? Weiss presses. Give me a number. He hesitates, then shrugs as if the question is crude. Globally, perhaps 12, perhaps 15, but their actions are monitored, and we have found no proof of misuse. No proof, the same shield as always. No fingerprints, no crime, as if the absence of evidence is a verdict instead of the whole point. In a break between sessions, away from the polished phrases and carefully neutral smiles, a younger Danish analyst corners Hartman near the coffee machine. He looks like he hasn't slept properly in days. His badge dangles crookedly on a lanyard. He speaks quietly, fast. I ran a diff on the logs, he says, compared the anomaly night to a baseline month. There's something else, a pattern of small packets just before the session, too small to be normal maintenance, too regular to be noise. Encrypted, not in our spec. From where? She asks. He shakes his head. Hard to say, routed through several hops. But the last visible point before our perimeter is interesting. He scribbles an address on a napkin, slides it to her. I checked twice. I shouldn't even be telling you this. The address isn't a corporate data center. It's not a known relay, not a cloud node. It resolves to an office building in Zurich. Different country, different bank. A place where, in 2002, a vault opened itself and forgot to scream. Headlines flash through Weiss's mind. Cold case echo. Copenhagen glitch. Linked to Zurich phantom. It sounds absurd, like something out of a conspiracy-laced tabloid. It also sounds exactly like the kind of pattern you only see if you've already been haunted by the first incident for half your career. Back in Berlin, the mood shifts from curiosity to something sharper. The Zurich address is traced to a holding company that owns half a floor in a modern tower and officially does nothing more suspicious than financial technology consulting. Its board members are a carousel of names that mean little at first glance. Lawyers, ex-bankers, tech executives. One of them, though, pops out when Hartman cross-references the list with the old archive. The former technical liaison from the dissolved consulting firm that helped sell the enhanced remote diagnostic program 2 decades ago. The man whose trail went cold in 2003. He never disappeared. He just changed business cards. Weiss and Hartman build a new board. This one is cleaner, more focused. A surgical diagram instead of a spider web. At the top, a concept, not a name. Bank cleaning. Beneath that, 3 layers. First layer, fronts. Consulting firms. Shell companies, data analysis boutiques, and nice districts with good coffee. Second layer, enablers, engineers with access to master credentials, technicians who know where the systems bend, legal minds who can design contracts that open back doors while talking about safety. Third layer, clients, people with secrets in boxes and a problem that can't be solved with lawyers or bribes. Each layer isolated, each cell compartmentalized. If one part is exposed, the others can deny, shrug, dissolve, reappear. It's an ecosystem, Hartman says, not a gang. That's why we never found the crew. There is no crew, there's a service. Services have operators, Weiss replies. Services have founders, people who pitch the idea, make the first deal, prove it works. Somewhere, someone had to walk into a room with dangerous men and say, "Trust me, I can make your problem vanish inside a bank." The prison informant's story comes back. Foreign accent, wrong shoes, the card with the circle logo. Hartman redraws the symbol, this time overlaying it on a map of Zurich's financial district. Circles, layers, a target at the center. They push the Swiss connection through channels. There are meetings with prosecutors over video links, calls with federal police, carefully worded requests swimming between ministries. The answer is cautious cooperation laced with territorial defensiveness. The Zurich Vault incident is their unsolved shame, not Berlin's. They will review the information. They will consider joint investigative steps. They will not at this stage acknowledge the existence of any coordinated international criminal structure that might undermine confidence in the banking system. Confidence, the invisible currency underneath the visible one. The real vault none of them want to see opened. Time stretches, weeks of waiting for replies, of attending smaller cases, of pretending to care about petty fraud while the big ghost sits on the corner of the desk, arms folded, tapping its fingers. The Copenhagen anomaly fades from the media altogether. It never really made it there in the first place, just a blip in an internal report. But the people who build and sell security take note. Quiet updates roll out, firmware patched, procedures tightened, memos circulated with phrases like best practice and proactive mitigation. The system learns, layer by layer, how to defend itself against the attack it still refuses to fully admit happened. Then, one evening, long after the office is thinned out and the cleaning crew has started their slow drift through the corridors, an email lands in Hartman's inbox, short, unadorned, from a Swiss address she doesn't recognize. Subject, Geneva 2007, no greeting, no signature, just a paragraph. You are not the first to see the pattern. You are just the first not to look away. 10 years ago, we had our own glitch in a private vault near the lake. No money missing. One box resealed slightly off-center. The client never complained. 2 months later, he died in what was ruled a suicide. I left the case open in my drawer. I am sending you what I have. We should talk, not on this channel. Attached, a single scanned page from an old report. It describes a high-net-worth individual, dual citizen, involved in complex offshore structures. Box contents, unknown. 3 days before his death, he told a colleague he had taken steps to ensure a certain file could never fall into the wrong hands. 3 days after he said that, he put a gun to his temple in his lakeside house and left no note. There is a scribble in the margin in a different pen. Box was accessed during overnight maintenance test. Security company logs inconsistent. Client refused details. Said it was handled. Bank cleaning. Hartman prints the page, ink still warm, and places it carefully next to the Berlin images. The story is no longer about one city, one winter, one detective staring at a frozen frame. It's about a quiet economy of erasure, operating in the blind spots of another, louder economy. Cold case within a cold case, Weiss says. A death that might not be murder caused by a theft that might not be robbery. Evidence removed, she replies. Witness dead, ledger wiped, and everyone else paid to keep their mouth shut by pretending nothing happened. The question hanging in the room is the same one that's been there since 1999, just bigger now, meaner, heavier. How do you catch someone whose entire business depends on leaving nothing to hold? No DNA, no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses, just absence, shaped so precisely it might as well be a signature. They start to think differently. Instead of asking, who robbed the bank, they ask, who needed something inside that vault, something too dangerous to exist? Instead of chasing the thieves directly, they trace the gravitational pull of the missing items. Cases that collapsed mysteriously, investigations that suddenly lost momentum, public figures who survived scandals that should have destroyed them because key documents could not be located. Files bloom across their board, corruption probes cut short, organized crime trials with strangely thin evidence, corporate lawsuits abandoned after new information surfaced behind closed doors. Names repeat, sometimes in the background, sometimes in footnotes. Old power, new money. People who move through the world with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing the worst thing about them is buried somewhere no one can dig. The more threads they pull, the clearer it becomes. They're not chasing robbers. They're chasing a fire brigade for the elite, a clandestine emergency service for those who can afford to outsource their guilt. And somewhere in that network, at the center of those circles, is the operator, the man or woman who walked into a smoky bar once and spoke about bank cleaning with the easy arrogance of someone convinced they will never be caught. Someone who has been building this business for years, maybe decades, adjusting every time the systems adapt, staying just one update ahead. Berlin 1999 starts to look less like a perfect crime and more like a first draft. The city doesn't know any of this. Outside on Friedrichstrasse, people hurry past the bank with headphones on, bags in their hands, lives full of problems that have nothing to do with vaults and codes. Above ground, the story is quiet. Below ground, in files, in cables, in conversations whispered between people who aren't supposed to talk, it's getting louder. There's a moment in every investigation when the case stops being just a file and starts pushing back. Until then, you move through it like a maze you assume is static. After that, you realize the walls are watching you. It happens on a Wednesday. Not an explosive day, no raid, no arrest, just a small, off-key detail, the kind that slips under the door and sits there until someone trips on it. Hartman comes into the squad room with a paper cup of coffee and a crease between her eyebrows that wasn't there yesterday. She drops her bag, opens her laptop, and freezes. Her inbox is empty. Not light, not clean, empty. No colleague chainmails, no spam, no automated system updates. Just one new message sitting alone in the middle of a white void, like a single drop of ink in a bowl of milk. Subject, be careful what you reopen. No sender name, address looks random, a string of letters that means nothing. No greeting, no signature, just a short line in the body. Cold cases are cold for a reason. Don't turn this one into an obituary. There's also an attachment, a single image file, low resolution, compressed. She clicks it before she can talk herself out of it. It's the Berlin Bank Lobby, 1999. The same frozen frame, same tiles, same posters, same empty space, same smudge at the edge. Only this time someone has added a thin red circle around the distortion like an insult, like a taunt. We know which picture wakes you up at night. Hartman swallows, feels her heart rate spike. For a second, she thinks of malware, of traps, of IT warnings about unknown attachments, but the damage has already been done. Not to the machine, to her. She prints it out, walks to Weiss's office, and lays the page on his desk without a word. He studies it, jaw tightening. Where did you get this? Anonymous email, she says. No trace, no header worth anything. It says it bounced through 3 public relays and a compromised account somewhere in South America. Could take months to even get close, if we get close. He looks at the circled smudge. Someone knows what we're looking at. Someone knows we've linked Berlin to Zurich, to Copenhagen, to Geneva. Her voice is flat now, anger under glass. Someone knows we're not letting it die on the shelf. He sits back, stares past her at the board on his wall, the map, the logos, the concentric circles. Good, he says finally. She blinks. Good? The only time they threaten you is when you've stopped being irrelevant. The official response is bland. They notify internal security. They log the email. They forward it to cybercrime. IT suggests stronger passwords, 2-factor authentication, the usual digital bandages. Privately, people murmur phrases like probably just a troll and maybe an X from one of your other cases. They don't see the pattern. To them, it's just noise. But for Weiss and Hartman, it's confirmation. The ghost has seen them, and it wants them to stop. They don't. They go after the Zurich holding company instead. On paper, it's all glass and sunlight. Innovative financial solutions, data-driven consulting, next-generation risk modeling. The website is a symphony of buzzwords and stock images of city skylines at dusk. The office tower that houses their floor is the same. Reflective glass, minimalist lobby, a security desk that smiles and records visitors with polite paranoia. Hartman flies out first, under the cover of a liaison visit. She checks into a mid-range hotel with forgettable wallpaper and walks to the building like any other consultant with a laptop bag and a head full of slides. At reception, she shows a letter from Swiss Federal Police that says she's here to discuss regulatory harmonization. The guard reads it, shrugs, hands her a guest badge. No red carpets, no alarms. The elevator ride is quiet, the kind of corporate ascent where people stare at the numbers instead of each other. The company name glows in silver letters beside a frosted glass door on the 8th floor. Inside, open-plan desks, plants, soft carpet, a view of the city that feels like a reward for playing the game correctly. No one here looks like a villain. They look like people who run marathons and read financial news on their phones. The man who meets her in a glass-walled conference room is exactly the kind of face you forget as soon as you leave. Late 40s, dark blue suit, pale eyes that don't quite match his smile. His card says managing partner. His handshake says, I've done this 1,000 times. He introduces the firm, speaks in fluent corporate headlines. We help institutions modernize their risk architecture. We translate technical complexity into strategic advantage. We're especially proud of our historic work helping security providers align with bank expectations. That last sentence is the one Hartman hooks. Historic work, she repeats. You mean back when analog systems were going digital? When remote diagnostics were the new frontier? He nods, unconcerned. Yes, a formative time. Many mistakes made across the sector, many opportunities. Did your firm advise on any contracts involving persistent remote access to vault alarm systems? She asks, casually. Too casually. Something flickers in his eyes. Persistent access is a strong phrase, he says smoothly. We offered conceptual advice on service models. It was up to the providers and their clients to implement or reject. Do you remember Berlin, she says? 1999, a vault that opened without a forced entry, no alarms. He pauses just long enough. I remember the headlines, he says. Terrible incident, but we were not involved operationally. Our role is advisory, not technical. Advisory, she repeats, like suggesting that remote channels could be sold as a value add without fully explaining what happens if those channels are compromised. He smiles again, thinner now. If you came here to accuse us of something, I think we should have your federal colleagues present. She leans forward. If I came here to accuse you, you'd know it. I came here to see your face when I mentioned Berlin, Zurich, Geneva. He doesn't flinch at Zurich. He doesn't twitch at Copenhagen. But at Geneva, there's a tiny tightening at the jawline. A tick, gone in a heartbeat. A man remembering something he's told himself to forget. I consult globally, he says. I've seen many incidents. Banks are imperfect creatures like people. Sometimes they lose control of their own assets. It doesn't mean there is a conspiracy. It usually just means there is negligence. He stands, signaling the end. If you have specific legal questions, please submit them through your Swiss colleagues. We will, of course, cooperate within the appropriate framework. The meeting is over. Nothing explosive said, nothing incriminating, just a controlled professional deflection. But as Hartman walks back to the elevator, she passes a wall of framed photos, conferences, symposiums, panels, men in suits shaking hands on stages, logos behind them. One image stops her like a slap. The managing partner, 10 years younger, hair a little thicker, smile a little wider, standing next to a man whose face she has never seen and yet feels she recognizes. Mid-40s, tanned, expensive suit that doesn't quite hide the casual, predatory ease. No name plaque in the picture, no caption. Just two men shaking hands under a banner that reads, in English, "Trust in Infrastructure." It's not the face that hooks her, it's the pin on his lapel. Small, discreet, a circle made of broken circles, thin lines looping but never closing, like a ripple, like a target. She doesn't stare, she doesn't even stop. She lets herself register it in a peripheral way, like a passerby glancing at art. In the elevator alone, she closes her eyes and redraws it in her mind, line by line. Same circle as the inmate described. Same circle as the Marseille report hinted at. Same circle she's sketched on whiteboards in Berlin. She doesn't ask for a copy of the photo. She knows it wouldn't survive a request. Instead, she waits until late, when the building is quieter and the cleaning staff have moved on to other floors. She walks back, phone in hand, pretending to answer a call. Pause by the wall, raise the phone as if checking a message. Click. The shutter sound is set to silent. The security camera in the corridor sees nothing more suspicious than a visitor killing time. Back in Berlin, she prints the photo in black and white. The quality's bad, but the essentials are clear. The face, the pin, the logo behind them. She pins it next to the prison informant's sketch of the card. We have a face for the circle, she says. Weiss studies it, eyes narrowing. Recognize him? Not yet. No social media, no obvious public profile. I ran his face through internal databases, nothing. But the logo on the banner belongs to an old conference series sponsored by the security sector. Someone will remember a name that goes with him. These people love guest lists. She's right. Somewhere in a dusty online archive, in a PDF no one has opened in years, there's a list of speakers from a 2008 symposium on integrated security solutions in a globalized market. The hosting site is broken. The link returns an error, but an older version is cached on a forgotten mirror server. A name sits there, third from the bottom of the keynote list. Giulio Serra, independent consultant. Topic, aligning service models with high-value client needs. Hartman reads it aloud, tastes the words. Bank cleaning, she whispers, dressed up in conference language. Weiss pulls more threads, old trade magazines, industry gossip, a profile piece from a decade ago, written in the breathless tone reserved for disruptors. Sarah is described as the man who sees security not as a wall, but as a product. He's a former systems engineer turned strategist. He helps security firms unlock new revenue by leveraging existing infrastructure. He bridges the gap between technical capability and elite client expectations. After that article, he appears in a few more programs, then vanishes. No more interviews, no more keynotes, nothing. He went offline, Weiss says, on purpose. Or he went private, Hartman counters. Stopped selling ideas to the whole room. Started selling them quietly to the people who could afford more than buzzwords. A headline writes itself in her mind. Ghost in a suit. The salesman behind the Vault Phantom. It's not ready for print, but it has shape now, a body, a name. They put Sarah at the center of the board, not as a suspect, but as a gravitational point. Around him, the security firms, the consulting fronts, the unsolved vault incidents, the client deaths that smell wrong. They don't have enough for an arrest warrant, not even enough for an official international request. All they have is a pattern, a logo, a vanished man, and a feeling in their bones that this is the voice that pitched Berlin 1999 in some room they'll never see. And as they get closer to naming the ghost, the pressure changes. It starts as little things. A car parked across from Weiss's building 3 nights in a row, always someone different behind the wheel, always the same subtle attention directed at his windows. One evening, Hartman unlocks her bike and finds both tires expertly slashed, no other bike touched. Someone keeps calling her private number and hanging up as soon as she answers. No words, just a click and a silence that feels like someone's breath on the line. Then, one Friday, Weiss comes home to his apartment and knows before he touches the lock that something is wrong. It's a small, instinctive shift. The way the hallway feels, the air, the faint smell of a stranger's cologne hanging in the stairwell. Inside, nothing is obviously disturbed. No drawers rifled, no TV gone, no smashed glass. But on his kitchen table, there is a single object that wasn't there in the morning. A bank card, old, expired, the logo of the Berlin bank that keeps him awake. The name on the card is not his. It's not anyone he knows. The embossing is worn, the plastic slightly bent, like it spent years in someone else's wallet. Across the back stripe, in red marker, someone has drawn a circle made of broken circles. Underneath, 3 words in English. Let sleeping dogs. No lie, the sentence left hanging on purpose like a trapdoor. He stares at it for a very long time. Officially, it's nothing. No break-in proven, no fingerprints, no CCTV. The building's entry logs show nothing unusual. His neighbors saw no one. Like everything else in this case, it's an absence wrapped around an object, a warning that technically doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's a shot across the bow. Hartman argues they should open it up, escalate, demand formal protection, force the system to acknowledge that a case everyone claims to have forgotten is suddenly leaning on the people who remember it too well. Weiss listens, nods, then shakes his head. The minute we make this public, he says, they win. They get to fold it into the chaos. Detective harassed, no clear link, maybe unrelated. They love that. It makes us look paranoid. It turns the story into gossip. So we do nothing, she snaps. We do the opposite of nothing, he replies. We work faster. Outside, Berlin moves through its seasons. Tourists take photos under the Brandenburg Gate. Street musicians play the same songs on different corners. New scandals bloom and burn out in the news cycle. The Berlin 1999 bank heist is a trivia question now, a remember when for crime buffs. But in one office, with one wall full of circles and names and old headlines, the case is hotter than it has ever been. Not solved, not even close, but alive, and whoever built a business out of turning other people's nightmares into unexplained incidents has finally noticed that someone, somewhere, is refusing to look away. The story that started with a silent vault in winter is no longer just about what was taken, it's about what someone is willing to do, years later, to keep an old headline from turning into a much more dangerous one. Berlin, 1999, bank heist, the day the circle was born. You don't hunt a ghost by chasing its shadow. You make it think there's something worth haunting. The decision comes late, after too many nights staring at the same wall, the same circles, the same name under the same grainy photocopied face. Giulio Serra, consultant, architect, salesman of invisible tools. The pattern is tighter now, the threats are closer, the warnings less subtle. The circle is watching, but watching is a two-way street. In the cramped air of the squad room, under the hum of old fluorescent lights, Weiss says the thing everyone else is too afraid to say out loud. We won't find them by following the old crimes, he says. Those doors are sealed, the systems patched, the logs burned, the witnesses buried. We have to go the other way. We have to give them a new job. Hartman looks up from her notes, eyes narrowed. You want to bait them? I want to give them what they sell, he replies. A vault, a problem, a client who needs a box cleaned. Something big enough, dirty enough, tempting enough that it makes them show their hand. She leans back, thinking. We don't even know how clients reach them. There's no phone number on the card, no website, no office with a doorbell that says, please erase my evidence. But we know there's a channel, he says. Bars, lawyers, fixers, the kind of people who deal in quiet solutions. They don't advertise, they whisper, we can whisper back. The plan that takes shape is simple, brutal, and full of holes. A sting, but not the kind with wiretaps and staged briefcases in parking garages. This one has to live in rumor. They'll build a story that sounds exactly like the sort of crisis the circle exists to solve. A high-profile figure with a dangerous item in a safety deposit box, under imminent threat of seizure by investigators, a scandal that can't be bought away, a file that can't be burned without leaving obvious traces, unless the entire box, the entire vault, is wiped from the inside. They need a name, a crisis, a bank, a box. They need to make it look real enough to move the kind of people who might have Sarah's invisible business card in their bottom drawer. They start with the name, not a real politician, not a real CEO. That would be suicide and probably illegal in more ways than anyone can count. Instead, they build a composite, a fictional businessman whose life is made of true pieces. Offshore accounts borrowed from one case, a history of gray market deals copied from another, a public contract riddled with quiet corruption, enough reality to feel solid, enough invention that no one gets sued if it leaks. On paper, in a secure system, this businessman already exists. Tax ID, corporate records, leaked emails, crafted carefully, hinting at a dossier locked in a Berlin vault, a safety deposit box in a bank that still runs on a variant of the old architecture, the kind that once answered to those master credentials like a dog to a whistle. The bank is the hardest part. You can't drag a real institution into a fake scandal without cutting a lot of throats. So they don't. They go to one that has already been cut. A mid-tier bank, hurt by past mismanagement, bought out and swallowed by a larger entity. Its physical branches still exist, its vaults still intact, but its brand is dead. In the basement of one of those quiet shells, there's a vault that still talks to the same successor security firm, still hums with an upgraded but related alarm system. Perfect. They bring the bank in under a tight NDA and a lot of hard stares. No one in the boardroom likes the idea of turning their old hardware into bait. But the words critical infrastructure vulnerability and quiet cooperation carry weight. So does the possibility, whispered but never written, that if this works, they can quietly reassure their clients they helped catch the ghost that has been haunting European vaults for a decade. The fiction comes alive in layers. A fake case file in an internal database flagged under a code name, draft indictments that look real, full of numbers and dates and shipping routes, an anonymous tip routed to a controlled channel claiming that the businessman's most incriminating documents are hidden in box number 314 of the old branch's vault under a false name. A memo, ostensibly internal, leaked by design through a known weak point, a consultant with too many side clients and not enough discipline. It's a controlled burn. They push the story into exactly the kind of shadow market that would benefit from a service like bank cleaning, the world of defense lawyers who never ask where the money comes from, accountants who can make whole companies disappear with a keystroke, fixers who know that sometimes you don't bribe a judge, you delete the evidence. The prison informant plays his part too. They bring him in again, sit him down, and ask him a simple question. If you wanted to reach the circle, where would you start? He smiles with the tired arrogance of someone who has waited years for this moment. There's a man in wedding, he says, calls himself a problem manager, not big enough to run a crew, just big enough to know who to call when he's out of his depth. Last time I saw him, he was bragging about knowing people who could make banks forget. Maybe he was lying, maybe not. They put the name under glass, check it against everything they have. The man is real. Minor fraud, mid-level extortion, a couple of old assault charges. Nothing that would make headlines, just another piece of the city's underbelly. They watch him, his phone, his bar, his nights. Meanwhile, in the background, the circle settles in like a story told too often in too many places. In Marseille, someone mentions the vault cleaners in a bar and gets shut down with a kick under the table. In Geneva, a lawyer suddenly cuts off a call when Hartman's name is mentioned. In Zurich, the holding company quietly changes its registered address, moving 3 floors down in the same building as if geography could shake off ghosts. The trap is set. The fictional businessman is notified of pending action. The leaked memo suggests the vault will be quietly frozen in 2 weeks pending judicial orders. The box number appears in a file that only a handful of compromised eyes can see. All of this is artificial, scripted, but the tension around it is very real. Then they wait. Stakeouts aren't glamorous. They're coffee and boredom, the slow erosion of patience. Hartman spends nights in a van across from the problem manager's bar, watching him laugh with men who never pick up a glass without scanning the room first. Weiss spends his days in meetings, pretending to care about small robberies, while a part of his mind is always in that dead bank's basement, listening for a sound that once changed his life, a vault opening in the dark when no one should be there. The first sign isn't a break-in, it's a conversation. 2 days before their fabricated freeze date, the man in wedding takes a call in the alley behind his bar. It's late. Cold, the streetlight's yellow. He lights a cigarette, tucks the phone under his chin, and keeps his voice low. The wire in the jacket 3 windows up, doesn't care how low he speaks. Yeah, he says. I heard. No, not from him. From a friend. Box 314, Old Branch. They're moving on it. I told him I know specialists. High level, no jokes, but they're expensive and they don't like tourists. There's a pause. A faint voice on the other end, too muffled to parse. Then, yes, I know a guy who can reach them. No, I don't call directly. Don't be stupid. There's a pool, message in, message out. You pay for the introduction and hope you're interesting enough. The word pool slides into the recording like an oily drop, not a person, a channel, an arrangement, a digital dead drop maybe, a username, a server, something. Tell him, the problem manager says. If he wants his past to stay in the past, he has 4 days. After that, the box isn't a box anymore, it's evidence. He hangs up, stubs the cigarette, goes back inside. The detectives in the van stare at each other, wide awake now. 4 days. Not a lot of time, but more than they had in 1999. More than anyone ever had when the circle moved unseen. Now there's a hint, a timeline, a possibility. Cybercrime comes alive. Night shift, extra screens, too much caffeine. They lean on every legal, semi-legal, and creatively interpreted protocol available. The goal isn't to spy on the whole underworld. It's narrower, sharper, find the pool. The channel the problem manager uses to hand over requests to the circle's anonymous gatekeepers. They scour his devices, not physically yet, but through metadata, traffic patterns, anomalies. One encrypted messaging app stands out, not because he uses it. Everyone uses something encrypted now. Because of when he uses it. Rarely, precisely, always after certain calls, always for exactly one message exchange, always to the same empty contact, a handle made of numbers and symbols that mean nothing, no avatar, no status, no visible history. A request goes up the chain through judges and legal departments to get a live intercept on that channel. It comes back begrudgingly approved, the authorization stamped with more oversight than some murder cases get. No one wants to be the person who signed the paper that blew up an entire covert network by accident. But no one wants to be the one who turned away when the door to the Vault Ghost's office finally creaked open. The clock starts 4 days. Down in the dead bank's basement, the vault is not dead. It hums with all the quiet intensity of a machine that remembers older rules. The security firm's technicians have installed extra monitors, added filters, wired in redundancies. Any remote session attempt will light up a board in Berlin and another in Copenhagen. Watchdogs watching watchdogs. The box itself, 314, sits behind a thick door in a row of identical steel rectangles. It's empty, of course. No real documents, no real secrets, just a neatly folded stack of blank paper and a tracking device no thief in their right mind would keep. The real evidence is elsewhere, in log files, in packet captures, in the invisible handshake between the ghost and the machine. The days crawl. The problem manager makes his calls. Hartman listens to his nights. Weiss watches lines of code scroll across screens. Cybercrime stares at encrypted nothing and waits for it to twitch. It happens almost exactly on the imaginary schedule the rumor predicted. 4 hours before the fictional freeze order is supposed to land on the bank's internal system, the problem manager steps outside again. Same alley, same yellow light, different phone. Disposable this time, the cheap plastic kind you can buy at a kiosk for cash and throw away when it starts to feel heavy in your pocket. He dials, says nothing for a long moment, listening to whatever ritual the other side requires. Then, client is confirmed, risk is high, vault is legacy, access window minimal, full cleaning requested, box 314, Old Branch, Berlin. He pauses, smiles faintly. Yes, he says, he understands the price. The call ends. A minute later, somewhere in the layered architecture of encrypted messaging services, a tiny light comes on in a place only a handful of people in the world usually see. This time, other eyes are watching. The empty contact wakes up. One message out from the problem manager's device. Package ready. Details as per channel. Window 4H. One message back from the void. Just a symbol, a circle made of broken circles. Then nothing. It doesn't look like much. Just 2 messages, 2 endpoints, a silent contact. But to the people in the cybercrime room, it's the first clear, real-time sign that the circle is more than old rumors and old bodies. It has a pulse. It has syntax. It has a way of saying yes. We can't break the encryption, one analyst mutters, frustrated. Not in time. We don't need the content, Hartman says, eyes on the timestamps. We just need to see what moves when they move. They trace traffic patterns around the contact. Outgoing packets from the service's infrastructure spike along certain routes. One path goes nowhere useful, scattered across random relays. Another leads toward a hosting provider in Eastern Europe known for looking the other way as long as the bills get paid. A third, smaller, more disciplined stream points to a node in a place they already know too well. Zurich, again, not the holding company's office. Not the building with glossy elevators and framed photos of men shaking hands under trust in infrastructure. Somewhere else. A nondescript address in a residential block on the edge of the city. Quiet street, balcony plants, curtains that don't draw attention. The circle isn't just hovering around banks. It has footholds in apartments, basements, co-working spaces where people think they're just freelance consultants trying to meet deadlines. The server in Zurich hums to life, talks to the messaging network, sends its own small burst of signals outward. One of those threads lances through a routing center in Frankfurt, then down fiber to Berlin, hitting the dead bank's IP range with the casual brutality of a man knocking on a familiar door. On the vault monitor, a technician's voice cuts through the air. Remote ping detected, he says. Not standard diagnostic. Signature, unknown. Everything tightens at once, in the basement, in the cyber room, in Weiss's chest. This is it, Hartman murmurs. On the logs, it plays out like Copenhagen, like Berlin, like Zurich, like all the incidents they've only ever seen in postmortem reports. A high-privilege session handshake tries to form. The system challenges. The intruder answers with credentials that should not exist outside carefully locked safes. The vault's alarm panel feels, for the first time in years, the ghost of the old master key brushing against its circuits. Only this time it's not alone. There are inline monitors that weren't there in 1999, watchdog processes that didn't exist when the vault first learned how to sleep on command. As the session escalates, those watchdogs scream silently, flagging anomalies in a stream that used to look like normalcy. Override attempt, a text says, voice high. Maintenance mode request denied. Privilege mismatch. They're spoofing top tier. Block it, Weiss snaps, watching the numbers dance. But let it breathe first. We need a print. It's a tightrope. If they slam the door too early, the intruder might retreat, adapt, vanish, convinced the system is just broken, not watched. If they leave it too long, they risk giving up control of the vault again, letting history repeat itself while they stand there with better cameras but the same empty hands. For 90 terrifying seconds, the vault's eyes flutter. Sensors flicker between armed and testing. Cameras stutter, drop frames, try to write conflicting truths about the same moment. Upstairs, the branch, long closed, is quiet. No customers, no staff. The only living things inside are a couple of spiders and a plant that should have been watered months ago. The intruder pushes harder, throwing commands at the panel that only someone who knows its architecture would think to use. A command to simulate a power failure, a command to route error logs to a null address, a command to disable a specific subset of motion detectors in the vault corridor. Each request is tagged with the same master credential, the same impossible key. In the lab, the analysts capture everything. Packet captures, timing, command sequence, the digital equivalent of a fingerprint being pressed over and over again against an increasingly uncooperative surface. Finally, the watchdogs bite. The system severs the remote session. Hard, a digital guillotine. The vault rearms fully. Cameras stabilize. The alarm panel chirps once, like a shrug, and goes back to its humming. In Zurich, in that quiet residential block, a small LED on a server changes color. In some room, a man or woman curses softly, fingers flying over a keyboard, trying to understand how a door that always opened before just slammed in their face. Somewhere else, maybe in another city, maybe on another continent, another person receives a short message from the circle contact, channel compromised, suspend client. In Berlin, in a room full of screens and exhausted people, there's no cheer, no high five, just a collective exhale. They didn't catch a body, they didn't see a face, they didn't stop a robbery, because there was nothing to steal. But for the first time since 1999, they made the ghost leave a footprint on a floor that hasn't had time to be scrubbed.